Cheers of Christ, your girl Crane here, and happy, blessed Friday, and happy Solemnity Feast Day of the Archangels of Saint Gabriel, Saint Michael, and Saint Raphael. It is an awesome day because the enemy is clearly trying to work double tap, so if you're getting extra amount of spiritual battles, keep alert, keep awake, and keep aware because the battle's real. It's not a joke. Yes, for sure, I may be talking about spiritual battles like a joke, but we have to take it seriously. It's something that we must not let our guards down. Every day we wake up, the enemy is on the hunt, the enemy is on the prowl to be able to corrupt your soul every single avenue that he can get. And especially when it comes to desperate tactics, it can get really desperate that you're just like, really? Like, that's not the old me anymore, so take a hike and leave me alone. So we have to be humbly acknowledging all of our past sins or past wounds so that we are able to recognize how the enemy is trying to like lure us into our old selves again. So I hope you're doing awesome on this awesome day. So if you're able to go to church today in particular, go. I highly do recommend it, and it's going to be an extra blessing for you. And especially, we should always make time to go to mass throughout the week, not just Sunday and then call it a day for the next 6 days, and then Sunday comes around, it's like, yeah, whatever, an hour late for mass. No, like, we gotta make time for adoration and mass and sacrament of reconciliation. Okay, for sure, going to mass is great, but we have to go outside of our comfort zone to make time for Christ. Like, especially adoration is so key. I just did it yesterday with the Sisters of Life, the Source. They have it every month, and I highly recommend. So if you're in Toronto or outside of Toronto, I highly recommend you do it because it's a beautiful hour of adoration that the Sisters of Light do actually provide the music. Like, they sing, they play the violin, they play the piano. It's just so, it's amazing. So sit in the front pew. I highly recommend you sit in the front pew because that is an ultimate thing that you just do not have distractions in front of you. Maybe some of you are watching this, you're like, I want to be in the back. I'm not. Well, when it comes to Jesus, you just want to look at him. You don't want to have like distractions in front of you. Just be like, hello. Like, you know, when it comes to mass and you have like kids in front of you, it does happen to me. That's why I know. Kids in front of you, they're just like, they're so, well, they're cute, obviously, and they're children, right? But sometimes they're a little loud, and then sometimes they turn around, and they just like look at you, and you're like, you're just trying to like focus. But they're so hard to ignore because they're so cute. Anyway, so definitely for sure you have to make an effort to focus on Christ any way you can so that you know you're not going to get distracted and the enemy will not be able to distract you in every angle that he can get. Anyways, without further ado, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast episode. I'm so blessed to have you with me here today on this awesome sunny feast day. And so with that said, let's get started! So I'll talk to y'all today about prayer as a means to discovering God's will, part 2. So I know I covered this topic last week as well, which I highly recommend you go and check it out if you've not already done so. And so with this topic in particular, I want to divide this topic into 2 parts because there are so much things to unpack that I do not want to compress them all in one 30-minute topic. 30-minute podcast episode, I mean. And essentially, this is a topic that really hits home to a lot of us, especially I myself included, because when it comes to pursuing God's will, sometimes you're so confused, you're so overwhelmed by finding out answers, trying to figure things out, and trying to make sure that we're secure, like lock secure in walking in a certain pathway that we do not know what's going to happen next. So that is where a huge degree of trust in Christ is essential. Trust. I know a lot of us have trust issues, and you're probably looking at me like, yeah, I kind of do. And I myself included. Everyone's included in this. So that is why this topic hits home to a lot of us. And that is one thing that we constantly have to strive to keep on trying to improve on every single day. So what should we do? So we need to try each day surrendering ourselves and abandoning ourselves for 2 reasons. without any reservation. Okay, when it comes to pursuing God's will, there must not be a conditions. Like, okay, God, I'm gonna like pursue this if only A, B, C, D, E, F, G happens. No, you don't negotiate with God and be like, hey, like I want to like write a contract down and you gotta sign it. Like, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. We have to pursue God's will without reservation, and two, without understanding why God allows this or that to happen. Okay, for sure we are human beings, for sure we have a sense of knowledge and understanding. However, when it comes to God, it exceeds that human comprehension. If something happens according to God's will and you're just sitting there like confused and just overwhelmed of like what's happening right now, and you're just like, you want to try but then you don't, and you're kind of just in this whole self-denial state of mind, and you just want to try, but then the sense of fear just swarms all over your mind and just ends up making you choose bad decisions. And so feeling that sense of regret is the ultimate way the enemy is going to be like, hello, come talk to me for a second, we'll have a chat. So we must not have that sense of reservation. Without any reservation, we pursue God's will, no sense of reservation. Just be like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to try, and I'm not going to chicken out after I make my first 2 baby steps, right? And understanding that whatever happens, like circumstances and like things that just shock us or things that just don't make us happy, God permits it because it's for our own good. So that is why we need to be unconditionally docile to his actions, despite the internal and external trials with which he wants to purify our souls. Okay, when it comes to trials, friends, you embrace that. You don't go all stubborn mode and denial mode, be like, why are you, seriously? No, you don't try to argue with God, and you do not play tug of war with God. There's no such thing as that when it comes to pursuing God's will. Because when we strive to discover God's will, we need to be unconditionally docile, as I said. So despite of what God permits in our lives, we must be 100,000% embracing that, whether we like it or not. Yeah, for sure, it's gonna be like, really? Like, what? But then just be like, okay, I'm gonna trust the process, and I know for sure this whole process is for my own good. And in that whole process of that thinking mode, it does humble you because it enables you to be more docile to pursuing God's will. So we need to be willingly accepting 2 things, okay? Difficulties, and 2, setbacks and disappointments. Difficulties, setbacks, and disappointments. Difficulties, yes, for sure, it is hard. We as humans are always wanting the nice paved roadway, or like the red carpet, like everything's all spick and span, everything's good, I don't have to worry about anything, okay. Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. When it comes to pursuing God's will, it's going to be like a roller coaster. You're gonna have some ups, downs, swerving left, right, and center, right? There is actually a meme that's coming to my mind right now. Essentially, it's 2 pathways. You got my way, it's like straight, well, what you anticipate. And then God's way is like, I don't know if you've seen it before, but if you have, that's what I'm thinking about. And essentially, that is what it is. This whole time of when you go through trials, like externally and internally, it is for the soul's sake of purifying your soul. So despite of what you're going through right now, and you're just in this whole state of mind of denial, God's trying to purify you. God is trying to place in the light what you gotta work on, whether you like it or not. It is very humbling because it's like cringe, like yeah. Essentially, when God really sheds a light on things within yourself internally, that is just not the best thing to look at. Yeah, but it's for your own good, for the soul's sake of purifying your soul. How are we able to pursue God's will if we're not purified? If you think about it, the closer you become to Christ, the more you will be purified. Think about that for a second there. The closer you become to Christ, the more you will be purified. So therefore, spiritual battles are often to happen. And essentially, you gotta be able to be like, okay, what is God calling you to do here today? What is God calling me to be purified within myself today? Right? It's this humbling acknowledgement of being like, okay, like, I have stuff to do to improve on within myself. And I'm not going to be stubborn, and I'm not going to try to run away from God about it. So therefore, when God's trying to call you to pursue something and you're constantly like in the self-denial, like, no, I'm just going to like run the other way, God will keep on calling you back to that point, whether you like it or not, just like over and over, and keep on reminding you subconsciously. And sometimes it's like, oh, God, really? So yes, external and internal trials are bound to happen. The more you try to become closer to Christ, be aware of that and humbly accept it. Humbly accept it, knowing that it is for your own good. So temptations will arise. Therefore, the state of denial. It's just like, okay, no, like, I know I'm called this way by God, but I'm like, I'm just gonna run again. And then this whole state of mind of denial, just like, no, I'll pursue something of what I think is best for me. And low-key, God's gonna talk to like your inner self and be like, my son, my daughter, really? Like, I'm trying to call you here, but you know this is good for you. So yeah, stop trying to be in that state of denial. It's not healthy because you're constantly in this like tug of war within yourself and this like internal trial, tribulation. It's hard. It's not a comfortable state. I have to admit, it's not. So if you are in that state of mind right now, obviously, it's not, forget it. Turn that off, throw it at the enemy. So it's like out the trash can and focus on Christ and be like, hey, like, I'm going to humbly accept what God's trying to call me to do and humbly pursue. And I'm going to try with my wholeheartedness, with full docility, unconditionally. Unconditionally. That is the key word here I want you, friends, to actually take away from this. Unconditionally. Yes, you can say, I believe in God, our Father Almighty, blah, blah, etc., etc., etc. But then when it comes to trials and tribulations arising and temptations, that's where you're like, I kind of like regret that now. No. When trials and tribulations arise, the harder you persevere. Right? Think about that gospel reading about, I believe it was last weekend, about how Jesus actually talks about the different seeds. Right? The one where it's sown in good soil and it bears fruit in comparison to the ones that are choked by thorns. That gospel. I'm not really too good in terms of like in the location, but you know which one I'm talking about. Which seed are you? Are you the seed that gets choked by thorns the moment pleasures of the world and the moment stress of the world contaminates your soul? Or are you that seed that bears fruit despite of the trial and tribulations that surround that seed? Which seed are you? So constantly think back to that when God calls us back home, we must be ready to present the fruits that we have grown throughout our lifetime. Not being like, hey, God, can you just send me back to earth? Because like, I'm going to do my homework now. No, okay? We know what we're called to do. We know what we need to do. And that is pursuing God's will without condition. Without negotiating with God. Be like, hey, I want all of this to happen and then I'll pursue you, God, your will. No, it doesn't work that way. So when tribulation arises, like dryness, right? Dryness of prayer life. It's just like you kind of lose a sense of inspiration to pray and to grow deeper in your faith. We must not succumb to lukewarmness because why? Good fruit will bear from it. When we persevere so much harder in our spiritual life, despite the storms that surround us, that enables us to bear better fruit when we persevere harder. Remember, my friends, if you're not going through trials and tribulations and spiritual battles, something's wrong. Something's wrong. That means like the enemy's happy with whatever you're doing. Clearly. So let that be a reminder to you, friends, that if the enemy is not attacking you at this current state where you are at right now, something's wrong. Because the enemy's happy. He's not mad. I'm not saying go like tease around with the enemy, but it should be an indicator to you that when you are doing something right, the enemy will sense it and see it and try to stop it and block it. So whenever you're going through any internal battles or any trials and tribulations in your life, realize that you are at the verge of victory, my friends. So think about it. If you're in this sense of like tug of war within yourself, like I want to pursue God's will, but then your other half is like, I don't want to because I don't want to let go of my like worldly pleasures and the things of my old self. Realize the enemy is playing tug of war with your head. Trying to be like, stay back here. Yeah, I know I make it sound funny. Maybe I'm not funny. Anyways, but that's the reality, friends. When you know you're doing something right, it will tick the enemy off. So many angles. And, which is even more funnier, is that the enemy will try to use desperate tactics that the enemy thinks that will work for you to draw you away from Christ, to distract you. So, remember, friends, when the enemy is not attacking you, something's wrong. Because whatever you're doing is making him happy. So, let that sit in your heart, my friends, because succumbing to lukewarmness is ultimately being a coward in your faith. Because when things don't go your way, you let the enemy win. That's not how it works, friends. So we must always remember that God always wants the best for us. So no matter what we want for ourselves, and God's trying to lead you to something better than what you think is good for yourself, let God lead you. Let God take the wheel. Don't just sit there and waste time arguing within yourself. Be like, I want this, but then why is God not giving me that? Stop complaining. Every moment you waste is literally letting the enemy win. Remember, friends, the more you say no to something that's good for you from God, the more God will keep on putting it right back into your life over and over and over. No matter how many times you're in this sense of self-denial that it's not God's will, it's not for me, it's no. Seriously, like, every day is a day not to be wasted. So every time you let the enemy win is literally allowing your soul to be more corrupted and more contained by the enemy in so many ways. So when we go through trials and tribulations and internal battles, we must accept them gratefully and trusting the nearness to us that God will help us in his grace. So no matter what you're going through right now, God will help you. That is why whatever you're doing in your faith, your spiritual life right now, challenge it. If you're just content with just going to mass and listening to talks and some priest, and you're content with that, and the enemy's not really attacking you much, something's wrong. You gotta go outside of your comfort zone to be able to grow deeper. If you keep on telling yourself like, oh, I'm too busy and that. The question is, are you willing to make time? That's why I always believe in this state that you are never too busy unless you want to be. Therefore, the excuse of like, I'm too busy does not exist when it comes to God. God can see what you're doing throughout the day. Even if you're busy at work, 10 minutes, 15 minutes time, just go to chapel, go to church, and just spend quiet time with Christ. We all need it. And it's free, okay? There's no charge to just go to church and spend quiet time. The only thing is your willingness to make time. So when it comes to having that quiet time with God, especially in adoration, which I highly recommend you do, just keep on replying to God, like, let it be done as thou wilt. Let thy will be done. Exact words of what our Blessed Mother Mary said. Fiat voluntas tua. Thy will be done. It's simple. Just say like, Lord, I am so confused. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't have answers, but I know you will take me there. And I know you'll take me through it. And I will not back out when times get tough. And so, speak from your heart. I would highly recommend as well during adoration, just speak from your heart. You don't have to like vocally say it. Just speak from your heart. Honestly. And wholeheartedly. And trust me, the Lord will speak to you. Quietly. In that quiet whisper. And it's just a beautiful moment to embrace that. Because for sure, obviously we get so overwhelmed with like life, day, work, and stuff like that. But when it comes to Christ, we can hear him. The question is, are you willing to filter out the noise first in order for you to hear Christ? So this should be always our attitude. Always our attitude towards everything in our life. If God permits something, you're like, hey, your time. Or maybe it's your will, but just maybe not the right time right now. Who knows? But do not be in that state of denial. That state of like, I know what I need to do, but I refuse to do it. Because I'm scared and I'm overwhelmed. Because I don't have answers. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, for sure, like, you want answers, but God's time. If there's some answers that you want answered like now, just tell me like, God's time, your time. You will show me, and I believe that. You will. You gotta try, friends. God's not just gonna sprinkle it over you just like a little fairy dust, and they're like, okay, now I believe it. No, it doesn't work that way, okay? No. You gotta do your part, too. Gotta do your part, making time for Christ, humbly being docile to Christ and God's will every single day, and he will give you the help that you need. So, when it comes to humbling, asking God, we gotta humbly ask God for strength. How are we gonna get the strength to pursue God's will if we don't ask for it? Right? You gotta do things that are outside of your comfort zone. Therefore, do more spiritual reading. Go to adoration more often. Go to Mass more often. Okay? We gotta be able to equip ourselves with the Word of Christ. Therefore, reading the Scripture every single day is so essential. Yeah, going to Mass is great. Receiving the body of Christ, awesome, great. But like, there's more to that. We can't be walking around ignorant people. Ignorant sons and daughters of Christ. We can't be doing that. Right? So we have to ask God humbly for the strength in order for us to pursue God's will. That in itself is prayer. Be like, Lord, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm mentally drained out. I need your help. Simple. Just say that with wholeness of heart every time. And you will get the strength. Why? God will present you opportunities to become stronger. That is how he gives you the strength. You don't just get it like genie in a bottle. No, it doesn't work that way. God will give you opportunities to become more humble. It doesn't just splatter all over your face humility, no. He gives you opportunities to increase in those certain virtues that you're praying for. If you want to increase your virtue of trust, God will give you more opportunities to increase your trust in Christ. So therefore, corresponding that to pursuing God's will, yeah, trust right there and then. So if you know deep down what God's calling you to do today, that's your chance there, right there and then, to increase your trust more, to persevere more, despite you not having answers. That's how it is. So fulfillment of the divine will and the knowledge that it is being done, that is what we should be doing. Every single step we take is fulfilling God's will, if we pursue it wholeheartedly with love. With love. As I said in my last podcast episode, when you pursue God's will, it shouldn't be like, okay, well, I'm out of options, so like, you're my only option left. No. Okay, despite of you wanting to pursue your own options of the world, God should be the only option that you pursue. Because you love him, and you know it's good for you, and you know that awesomeness will come out of it in due time. So, the more you surrender to God's will, the more that you will get your source of gratitude and serenity. Because the more you pursue God's will, each step you take, and you get answers along the way, you will enable to be like, yes, Lord, thank you. Ah! And then you're just like sitting there like a jolly ball. Just all happy and just jumping for joy. But also as well, friends, we must rejoice even in the midst of storms or trials and tribulations. Yeah, I said that right. You gotta keep on smiling and always jumping for joy despite of you going through trials and tribulations. We shouldn't be, when you're going through trial and tribulation, we should not be walking around like, yeah. Like it's so obvious in your body language. No. Despite all that, the way that's best to cope with that is to be like, okay, giving thanks to God more and more and more. Be like, thank you, Lord. You are giving me awesome opportunities to become better. And that in itself should make you more happy. Because God can see that your willingness to try is there. So he's giving you those opportunities to get better. So if you ask for strength, God will give you opportunities to be stronger and to be braver. To increase your fortitude. Right? So, my friend, don't just sit there and look sad that like, oh, I'm kind of going through this internal battle right now. Yeah, so. No! When you speak of Christ, you should be filled with boldness and confidence. You shouldn't be sitting there like all depressed and just speaking with the sense of sadness inside. No, when you reflect the love of God, it's gotta be with confidence. Like, yeah, I'm going through a lot right now, but despite all that, I believe that I'm getting my strength and I place all my hope in God, despite all of that. And that, my friend, is how you inspire others to draw themselves closer to Christ. It is through the hardships and difficulties that enables you to persevere harder in your love for God. And reflecting that to those around you is hard, but it's worth it. You gotta try. You can't just sit there and look sad all day because you're going through tribulations right now. You go to adoration, dump all that sadness to Christ, and in exchange, you will get the energy to be like, how am I like this? But like, I got so much going on in my life. Trust me. The more time you spend in adoration, it's very important. The more time you do that, you will feel a sense of difference from within. Okay? Christ works within us, from within, not from externally, from within. So that is how we need to be able to walk every single day with Christ, pursuing as well. Always relying on Christ and always replying to God, fiat voluntas tua. That's why I ran to her Blessed Mother Mary. She did the exact same thing. She didn't argue with St. Gabriel the Archangel, like, are you crazy? Like, are you insane? Why me? No. She didn't doubt. She didn't hesitate. She didn't run away from God either. And she did not run away from St. Gabriel the Archangel and be like, no, I'm just going to run. No. She didn't do that. So, you shouldn't too. Should not, okay? You should not run away from Christ and play tug of war with Christ. Walking around being in the state of denial that no, it's not God's will, but then deep down you know it is. And then every time that God sends you a reminder of that, it's like, here we go again. And you're just like sitting there like, you feel the sense of guilt that you should be doing something about it, but really you're just like trying to run away as fast as you can the other way. So, if you're there right now, literally do something about it right now. Today in particular. On the feast day of St. Michael the Archangel, St. Raphael, and St. Gabriel. And especially run to her Blessed Mother Mary. She will give you the sense of grace and surrendering your heart to pursue the cloud of unknowing, i.e. God's will. So, there you go, my friends. I know it's a lot, but I'm hoping and praying at least one point, if not all of them, has touched your heart today. And so that you'll be able to walk with confidence and boldness, pursuing God's will. Not pursuing God's will with sadness, despair, depression, discouragement, and all the negative vibes. You gotta be filled with positivity, my friends. You should not be filled with negativity and be like, hey, well, I'm going through this right now, therefore I'm gonna look that way. No. Well, you gotta keep on smiling with Christ. Remember, my friends, that pursuing God's will is smiling first. Knowing that God's looking right at you eye to eye, knowing that you can. Because God will through you. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning into podcast episode. I'm so proud of you for making it this far. And so for those that have not subscribed, please do. And if you're watching this live, please follow if you not already have so. So without further ado, God bless. And I'll see you guys in my next podcast video, God willing, in God's time. And as I always say in all my podcast episodes, do not be afraid to be true words of Christ. Bye. See you soon.